To understand the domain of a function, to understand how it produces its outputs, let's take a look at an example. This is a rational function. Now, we're going to evaluate it at a couple of different x values just to see what happens. I'm going to start with something simple, x equals 2. So to evaluate f of 2, we have to substitute the value 2 in for x, and the rest of it is simply performing the operations in the function. That's all a function really is a bunch of operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, what have you. And it's just a matter of doing them in the proper order. And as long as we can do them, every time we do an operation, we produce a number, and then that is used in the next operation, and so on. So, for example, 2 squared is 4, and then that 4 is used in the next operation, 49 minus 4. In the denominator, there are other operations. Again, 2 squared. There's also 10 times 2, and then an addition of 21. So again, we have the result of those operations gave us numbers, and then we combine those. We perform the addition and subtraction operations until ultimately we get a result, and that is our output. So beginning with this input value, we produce that output value by performing all of the operations in the function. Let's try a different input value. X equals 3. It's the same operations done in the same order. So, like before, we'll start in the numerator with squaring the input of 3. In the denominator, we will square the input of 3, multiply 10 times the input of 3, and then there's our plus 21. And then, again, as before, we will subtract in the numerator to finish that up. And in the denominator, we will subtract and add to finish that up. So far, so good, until we attempt to deal with that division. Here we were able to actually divide. There are some times where we might not actually be able to divide, but at least we have a fraction which we can write in simplest form. This, however, is a problem. We cannot do the division, so we don't actually produce an output here. The big difference then is that 2 is in the domain, but 3 is not in the domain. And the whole difference is because the input of x equals 2 produced an output, and the input of x equals 3 did not. So again, the questions to be addressed here are how a function produces its output, and why might that process break down? Why might it not be able to do so? So again, a function is nothing more than a sequence of operations, a list of mathematical things to do: squaring, subtraction, multiplication, addition, in whatever order it is set up in. And if we can do every single one of those operations all the way through until at the very end we have a single value, then we have produced an output. If, on the other hand, at any point in this process we reach a situation where we cannot proceed beyond that, then we will not get an output. So it's all about being able to perform all of the operations for that input.